Hi there, my name is Trish Lynch from IOHR in London. Thank you for being with us for another episode of our Human Rights TV. Taha Siddiqui is an award-winning investigative print and TV journalist covering Pakistan for the past 12 years. He has become well known as a frequent critic of Pakistan's powerful military establishment on social media and has recently survived an abduction attempt which has forced him to flee his homeland. But despite all of this, he continues to work as a journalist and to fight for the freedom of expression, speech and press. Mr. Siddiqui, thank you for joining us here today on IOHR via Skype. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, if you could just give me some background on your history as a journalist, what kind of stories have you covered and what kind of publications have you written for?
Well, I've been associated with journalism for the last 12 years. I started my career with financial reporting at CNBC, which is a news channel in Pakistan at that time. This was almost 12 years ago. And then I went on to do local media reporting for the next 5-6 years. And then I started working with international media. So for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been reporting for international news organizations. My work has appeared in leading news organizations like the New York Times. I've written for The Guardian. I've also reported for France 24, and I've also reported for multiple South Asian news organizations also at the same time. So my work, I mainly do print journalism and television journalism, and my work appears in different publications, and mostly the kind of stories I've been working on are related to Pakistan's civil military issues, terrorism affairs, terrorism attacks and the issue of terrorism in Pakistan, and minority rights, particularly with regards to human rights issues within the minority rights issues.
Let's talk about censorship now. Tell me some of the ways that journalists are censored in Pakistan. Who's doing the censoring, or is self-censorship commonplace?
Well, basically, the problem in Pakistan is becoming censorship. Self-censorship is becoming one of the biggest problems in Pakistani media right now. There was a time when the Pakistani military, which is basically the de facto government, used to tell journalists what stories to cover and what not to cover, and you would receive a call or you would receive a visit from the military officials. But now they have created such an environment of fear and intimidation by attacking journalists, by abducting journalists, activists, or even recently we saw that we've seen people were going missing now in Pakistan. News articles are going missing. They've been taken off their websites. News channels are going missing from the cable. One of the leading news channels in Pakistan called Geo News was taken off air, and it was because they said that the channel was not following the narrative that the military wanted it to follow. So because of that, now all the rest of the channels, all the rest of the news organizations in Pakistan have to toe a certain line, which is within that framework that the military gives them. So military is one of the biggest sort of influencers of media censorship. And then there's the team B of the military, which is the religious lobbies or the religious groups, which usually act as the team B. I'm saying team B because usually what we've seen that the Pakistan military does is that when it cannot, as a state, coerce someone into censorship or coerce someone into doing a blackout about stories, then they use religious lobbies and activate those religious lobbies. An example of this is a leading news channel a few years ago accused the military of being behind one of the attacks behind one of its journalists. A few weeks after that, we saw a blasphemy campaign that was launched against this particular channel, and this channel had to shut down because of blasphemy accusations. Similarly, last year we saw social media activists going missing. And when they came back, they said that the military had abducted them. And then they had to flee the country just because a blasphemy campaign was again started by some fringe religious groups that we had never heard of. And they went to the courts, and there was this whole blasphemy accusation. And blasphemy in Pakistan carries a death penalty, and it a lot of times when people are accused of blasphemy, mobs have lynched such people. So this is how the state or the military, which is the de facto government, kind of controls the Pakistani media and forces it into self-censorship.
Now, you're no longer living in Pakistan, you're living in self-exile in Paris. Tell me what happened on that fateful day. You were in a taxi, you were going to the airport. What happened next?
Well, on 10th of January this year, so around about 3 months ago, I was on my way to London actually, and I was supposed to deliver some footage that I was working on a film that I was working on, and it was around 8:30 in the morning when my taxi was stopped by armed men. There was one car in front of me, and there was a vehicle behind me. People came out which were all armed. They were holding Kalashnikovs and pistols, and they tried to take me away in one of their vehicles. Actually, they overtook the taxi I was traveling in, and they wanted to take that away also. But I saw one of the unlocked doors, and after that unlocked door, I jumped out of it and I ran for my life. And I went to a nearby police station and asked for safety and security there. But following my abduction attempt, the failed abduction attempt, I realized that pretty soon that the police was not going to help me. I met with the Pakistani Interior Minister. He asked me to write a letter to the army chief asking for a pardon. And once I saw, the helplessness of the Pakistani civilian authority, which was did have sympathy towards my case, but were not able to help me at all, I was advised that because the military, which I suspect to be behind it, because I was getting threats from the military for a very long time, and I was reporting on sensitive issues with regards to the military, so I suspect them to be behind my failed abduction attempt. So I realized that it was better that I get out, because they did not finish the job the last time, and they might come for me again. So the only way for me to be safe, and also to continue speaking, because that was very, very important for me. Even after my abduction attempt, I continued to speak, even though senior journalists or other people, family or other people advised me to go silent. But I chose to not compromise on my freedom of speech, and rather to compromise on my residence in Pakistan. And because of that, me and my wife and my child, we decided to move to Paris, where I've been living in self-exile now, self-imposed exile for the last 2.5 months.
Mr. Siddiqui, we're looking at a photograph that was taken moments after you managed to escape. You're wearing a white shirt, you're covered in blood, you look terrified. Tell me how traumatic that experience was for you.
Well, even now there are days when all of that episode comes back as a flashback in my mind. And there are days when I think about, if they were successful in taking me away, would I be here talking to you? I mean, right now I could think about that. Or
what do you think would have happened to you had they taken you away? Where would you have ended up?
I mean, there's a long list of missing persons in Pakistan, and from what I understand, the idea that they had was that because I was going to be traveling to London, I would be out of touch with my family, and eventually they would make up some story that I disappeared in London rather than in Pakistan, and they would have probably put me in some secret jail, which are across the country. There are secret military prisons, and they would have tortured me there, because some of the people who have come back after these abductions or these kidnappings, they have talked about how they were tortured, but not just tortured. The Pakistani military actually treats people like me, people who want to have freedom of speech, who talk about democratic values, they think that our minds are diseased for some reason, and that's what their approach is, that there's something wrong with our mind and that needs to be corrected. So they go to any length. So they would have tortured me, they would have kept me in secret prisons, in solitary confinement, and eventually, if I would have not, listened to what they were saying or accepted that they were right, they could have killed me and dumped my body somewhere to make sort of a lesson for the rest of the people. So definitely, I mean, those thoughts keep coming to my mind, and because of that, initially I had a lot of trouble traveling in public, going out, or just general paranoia, and for that I had to seek professional help also from a therapist, because and this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to intimidate not just me but the rest of the people and the rest of the community, journalist community, and that is why I wanted to have those pictures taken to tell the world and to tell Pakistanis and also the people who were my abductors or would-be abductors that is this the way that you treat people who are talking about freedom of speech, people who want to talk about democratic values? Is this the treatment you do to people who are educated and want to see a better Pakistan?
Well, thankfully you managed to escape, but there's many people who haven't been as lucky as you. We know that since 2008, 43 journalists have died in Pakistan. That's an average of 4 every year. What can be done legally to protect journalists?
Well, in Pakistan, basically, I mean, there's very little room left for the media to be free and independent. They have managed to sort of control all of the press across the board, whether it is the TV press or the print press or even social media itself now is being controlled and being monitored. Facebook pages they're put down off, and Facebook collaborates with Pakistani state authorities actually, and Twitter recently deactivated some of the accounts or suspended some of the accounts of human rights activists in Pakistan because they were reported by perhaps the state authorities. As far as legal cases are concerned, it talks about going to the judiciary. I myself went to the judiciary last year in May. This is 2017 May. I was also subjected to an arrest warrant for maligning the military on social media, and one of the investigation agencies called the Federal Investigation Agency in Pakistan wanted to arrest me, wanted to confiscate my equipment, and was calling me in for questioning, and I refused to go in, and I said that, and they were doing that all on counter-terrorism charges. So I refused to go in and be questioned, and I asked them that if they could tell me my specific crime as to what I said malign the army, then I would come in. Eventually, we had to go to the court. Asma Jahangir, the late Asma Jahangir, the very renowned lawyer, she was my lawyer. She took up my case. We went to the courts. We had one hearing in which the courts ordered the authorities not to harass me. That was back in June 2017. After that, the thing that happened was that I never got my hearing again. And then in January this year, they tried to go the illegal way. So even the courts are not, powerful in front of these people, because the thing is that we have to understand that the Pakistan military operates from a platform of invisibility. They do not come in front. They are invisible forces. So it is very hard to win from these invisible forces. And even if you do win from these invisible forces, you will not know if you have won or if you're lost or if they're still after you. So there are very few options for journalists in Pakistan or within the Pakistani, if they live within Pakistan, to continue working independently and freely.
The World Press Freedom Index lists Pakistan at 139, number 139, which tells us all we need to know about freedom of expression, freedom of the media in Pakistan. Do you see that figure changing anytime soon?
Well, I feel that as far as the Pakistani Press Freedom Index is concerned, that was recently launched by Reporters Sans Frontières, the RSF. I think in the coming days we'll probably see a worsening of it. And why? There are a few reasons. We're already seeing that this year in Pakistan the attacks against journalists are intensifying. As I was mentioning earlier, that not just journalists are being attacked, but news channels are going missing from the cable. Also, at the same time, news articles are going missing from websites. So the censorship or the clampdown is even expanded, and it's election years, and all of this sort of amounts to pre-poll rigging that the military wants to do, because it does not want to sort of show what it will be doing or how it will be manipulating the upcoming elections in Pakistan, which it has a history of manipulating. And as far as the overall press freedom is concerned, in the coming days, Pakistan Pakistan's values, as far as its values that it should take from the developed world, those values it's not taking. Actually, it is looking down upon those values which perhaps Western countries have or democracies have. Actually, Pakistan is becoming more of a closer partner to China. It is becoming more of a closer partner to Russia because of its sort of its isolation from the West, because of its own doings, and we've seen how the US, Pakistan are having a fallout. So in the coming days, if it goes closer to China, if it goes closer to countries like Russia, who already have a very poor track record of abuse of human rights, of abuse of the media, of freedom of speech, so I do not think Pakistan will go to the path of perhaps improving on its track record of human rights values. Rather, it will go on the side of worsening them, and it will take those sort of inspirations or those examples from countries like China or Russia, which are becoming closer partners with Pakistan and are heavily investing in Pakistan in the coming years.
Mr. Siddiqui, thank you for joining us on IOHR. We appreciate you sharing with us your story. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of IOHR, putting human rights into focus. Join us again next time. Until then, goodbye.